Louis of France was the eldest son and heir of Louis XIV, King of France, and his spouse, Maria Theresa of Spain. As the heir apparent to the French throne, he was styled Dauphin. He became known as Le Grand Dauphin after the birth of his own son, Le Petit Dauphin. As he died before his father, he never became king. He was the paternal grandfather of Louis XV. Biography. Louis was born on the 1st of November 1661 at the Château de Fontainebleau, the eldest son of the King and Queen of France. As a fils de France, he was entitled to the style of Royal Highness. He was baptized on the 24th of March 1662 at the chapel of the Château de Saint-Germain in Lyon, given his father's name of Louis. At the ceremony, Cardinal de Vendôme and the Princess of Conti acted as proxies for the godparents, Pope Clement IX and Queen Henrietta Maria of England. The latter was Louis's grandaunt. For this ceremony, Jean-Baptiste Lully composed the motet Pleurs de la Terre Gallia. When Louis reached the age of 7, he was removed from the care of women and placed in the society of men. He received Charles de Saint-Maury, Duc de Monthausier, as his governor and was tutored by Jacques Benin Bossuet, Bishop of Meaux, the great French preacher and orator, without positive result. Louis XIV secretly nursed the same suspicious jealousy of the Grand Dauphin that Louis XIII had once shown to himself. No prince could have been less deserving of such feelings. Monseigneur, as the heir to the throne was now known, had inherited his mother's docility and low intelligence. All his life he remained petrified with admiration of his formidable father and stood in fear of him even while lavish proofs of affection were showered upon him. The best way for Monseigneur to do someone an injury was to commend him to the royal favor. He knew it, and did not conceal it from his rare petitioners. Louis XIV saw to it that his son's upbringing was quite the opposite of his own. Instead of a devoted mother and an affectionate and likable tutor, the Dauphin had the repellent and misanthropic Duc de Monthausier, who ruthlessly applied the same methods that had so disturbed Louis XIII. They annihilated his grandson. Bossuet overwhelmed his backward pupil with such splendid lessons that the Dauphin developed a lasting horror of books, learning and history. By the age of 18, Monseigneur had assimilated almost none of the knowledge amassed to so little purpose, and the apathy of his mind was second only to that of his senses. It was said that when Louis was an adult, he could pass a whole day simply tapping his cane against his foot in an armchair. Nonetheless, his generosity, affability, and liberality gave him great popularity in Paris and with the French people in general. Louis was one of 6 legitimate children of his parents. The others all died in early childhood. The second longest lived, Marie-Thérèse of France, died at the age of 5 when Louis was 11. Louis's father considered various European royal daughters as possible wives for him, such as Anna Maria Louisa de Medici, and Louis's cousin Marie-Louise d'Orléans, daughter of Philippe, Duke of Orléans and Princess Henrietta of England. According to various reports, Marie-Louise and Louis were in love, having grown up with each other. However, Louis XIV used Marie-Louise to forge a link with Spain and forced her to marry the invalid Charles II of Spain, the Dauphin's own half-uncle. Louis was engaged to his second cousin, Maria Anna Victoria of Bavaria, when he was 7. She was a year older than Louis and, upon arriving at the French court, was described as being very unattractive. Nonetheless, she was a very cultured princess. They were married by proxy in Munich on the 28th of January 1680. The couple met for the first time on the 7th of March 1680 in Chalons-sur-Marne. political and military role. Although he was permitted at first to attend and later to participate in the Conseil d'Eno, Louis did not play an important part in French politics. Nonetheless, as the heir to the throne, he was constantly surrounded by cabals battling for future prominence. Apart from the minor political role he played during his father's reign, Louis engaged in more leisurely pursuits and was esteemed for his magnificent collection of art at Versailles and Meudon. Louis XIV purchased Meudon for him from the widow of Louvois. The Dauphin employed Jules Hardouin-Mansart and the office of the Bâtiments du Roi, but most particularly his long-term house designer, Jean Bérain, head of the Menus Plaisirs, to provide new decors. He lived quietly at Meudon for the remainder of his life, surrounded by his two half-sisters Marie and Bourbon and the Princess of Condé, both of whom he loved dearly. These three made up the main part of the cabal de Meudon, which opposed the Dauphin's son Louis and his Savoyard wife, the Duchess of Burgundy. Louis is said to have hunted wolves to extinction in the Isle de France. During the War of the Grand Alliance, he was sent in 1688 to the Rhineland front. Before leaving the court, Louis was thus instructed by his father, "In sending you to command my army, I am giving you an opportunity to make known your merit. Go and show it to all Europe, so that when I come to die it will not be noticed that the king is dead." The Louis succeeded, under the tutelage of Marshal de Duras and Vauban, in taking one of the bridgeheads across the Rhine, Philipsburg, which was surrounded by marshes. Louis's courage was shown when he visited the soldiers in the inundated trenches under heavy fire to observe the progress of the siege. Monthousier, his former governor, wrote to him thus: "I shall not compliment you on the taking of Philipsburg. You had a good army, bombs, cannons and Vauban. I shall not compliment you because you are brave. That virtue is hereditary, but I rejoice with you that you have been liberal, generous, humane, and have recognized the services of those who did well." Louis's capture of Philipsburg prevented the large gathering imperial army from crossing the Rhine and invading Alsace. Louis's position in the Conseil d'Eno gave him an opportunity to have his voice heard in the years and crises leading up to the War of the Spanish Succession. From his mother, Louis had rights and claims to the Spanish throne. His uncle Charles II of Spain had produced no descendants and, as he lay dying, had no heir to whom he could pass the throne. The choice of a successor was essentially split between the French and Austrian claimants. In order to improve the chances of a Bourbon succession, Louis gave up his rights in favor of his second son, Philip, Duke of Anjou, who, as second son, was not expected to succeed to the French throne, thus keeping France and Spain separate. Moreover, in the discussions in the Conseil d'Eno regarding the French response to Charles II's last will and testament, which did indeed leave all Spanish possessions to Anjou, Louis persuasively argued for acceptance. He opposed those who advocated a rejection of the will and the adherence to the partition treaty signed with William III of England, even though the treaty had awarded Naples, Sicily and Tuscany to him. Louis died of smallpox on the 11th of April 1711, at the age of 49, predeceasing his father. Marriages. Louis married Duchess Maria Anna of Bavaria on the 7th of March 1680. She was known in France as Dauphine Marie and Victoire. The couple had 3 sons, although the marriage was not a close one. She died in 1690. After the death of his first wife, Louis secretly married his lover Marie-Émilie de Joly de Coin in 1695. His new wife did not acquire the status of Dauphine, and the marriage remained without surviving issue. Pregnant at the time of her marriage, Mlle. Dauphin gave birth to a son, who was secretly sent to the countryside. The child died aged 2 in 1697, without receiving a name. Legend has it that a prophecy told at his birth said that he would be son of a king, father of a king, but never a king. This was thought to be fulfilled as he was the son of Louis XIV of France and father of Philip V of Spain, but did not himself become king. Legacy. The Dauphin Classics was a large edition of the Latin classics, edited in the 1670s for Louis XIII. Scholars contributed to the series, which was edited by Pierre, with assistance from several co-editors including Jacques Benin Bossuet and André. Issue Louis de France, Duke of Burgundy and later Dauphin of France, married second cousin Princess Maria Adelaide of Savoy and had the future Louis XV of France. Philippe de France, Duke of Anjou, became King of Spain in 1700, married second cousin Princess Maria Louisa of Savoy and had issue, married again Elizabeth Farnese and had issue, such as the future Dauphin of France, Infanta Maria Theresa Raphaela of Spain, Charles de France, Duke of Berry, Alençon and of Angoulême Count of Ponthieu, married his first cousin Marie-Louise Elizabeth d'Orléans and had issue but none survived over a year. Thus, through Burgundy and Anjou, Louis ensured the continuation of the senior Bourbon line on the throne of France and the establishment of the cadet Spanish Bourbon dynasty, respectively. Besides his unnamed child with Mme. Dauphin, Louis had two illegitimate daughters with Françoise Pitel, and Louise de Bonnebourg, wife of Anne Hérard d'Avaugour, Charlotte de Fleury, wife of Guerrier Michel de la Jonchère. With another mistress, Marie Anne Cormont de la Force, he had one daughter, Louise Emily de Vortada, wife of Nicolas Mesnager. Ancestry. Louis' paternal grandparents were Louis XIII of France and Anne of Austria. He was descended, on his mother's side, from Philip IV of Spain and Elizabeth of France. Louis XIII and Elizabeth de Bourbon were siblings, as were Anne of Austria and Philip IV, who were the children of Philip III of Spain and Margaret of Austria. That means that he had only 4 great-grandparents instead of the usual 8, and that his parents had the same coefficient of co-ancestry as if they were half-siblings.